Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut, helping you cut through the noise and get right to the core insights from all sorts of sources. Today, we're diving into some really profound ancient wisdom.
Yeah, we're looking at a fascinating collection of dialogues. They come from early Buddhist texts, specifically parts called the Sotāpattivaggo and Gamana vaggo.
Recorded way back in a place called Savatthi. And these aren't just, quaint stories, they're rigorous philosophical explorations.
Absolutely. Systematic investigations into why we believe what we believe.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to figure out why we end up holding these complex, sometimes contradictory views about reality, about ourselves.
And crucially, how letting go of those fixed ideas can lead to, well, real clarity, profound insight.
Right, a shortcut to being well-informed on these huge questions without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Exactly. And these dialogues, they show the Buddha addressing what he termed wrong views, the Diṭṭhi. These were ideas floating around back then.
The Diṭṭhi, so not just like a simple mistake.
No, more than that. Think of them as rigid ways of seeing things. Perspectives that often lock us into suffering because they're fixed. They don't flex with reality.
Okay.
And the consistent thread, the method used again and again in these texts to kind of dissolve these views, it all centers on understanding the true nature of what we perceive, seeing things clearly. And to really get a handle on this, we need to understand the core framework they use. It's called the 5 aggregates of existence.
The 5 aggregates.
These are like the building blocks of our moment-to-moment experience. Not fixed things, but processes, always changing.
Processes, not things. Got it.
So first, there's rūpaṃ, that's form. Your physical body, the chair you're sitting on, the sounds you hear, the material world, basically.
Okay, physical stuff. Rūpaṃ.
Then vedanā, feelings or sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, or just neutral. That immediate hit of experience.
Like warmth or pressure or an itch.
Exactly. Then comes saññā, which is perception or recognition. It's how we label things. See, red, round, sweet, apple. That's saññā.
Identifying things. Makes sense.
Next up is saṃkhārā. This one's a bit trickier. Mental formations. Think of it as volitional activities, intentions, biases, habits of mind, the impulses that shape our actions and thoughts.
So the more active, constructing part of the mind.
Yeah, you could say that. It's the doing aspect mentally. And finally, viññāṇaṃ, consciousness, just the basic awareness itself, seeing, hearing, tasting, thinking, the knowing quality.
Okay, so rūpa, vedanā, saññā, saṃkhārā, viññāṇaṃ. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. How do these building blocks connect to all those different, sometimes really strong views people hold?
It's actually remarkably consistent and elegant. The texts show the Buddha asking his disciples again and again about each aggregate. Take form, rūpa, he asks. Is form permanent or impermanent?
And the answer?
Always, without fail, impermanent.
Impermanent, right, for all 5.
For all 5. Feelings are impermanent, perceptions shift, mental formations arise and pass, consciousness flickers, nothing stays the same.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. So everything's impermanent. What's the next step? What does that mean? Does he ask if that leads to happiness or...
Exactly. That's the crucial follow-up question. And what is impermanent, he asks, is that suffering or happiness?
And the answer to that one?
Also consistent. Suffering. Dukkhaṃ.
Suffering. Now, that word can sound heavy. Does it just mean pain?
Not just pain or misery, though that's part of it. Dukkha here points more broadly to unsatisfactoriness, the inherent instability, the unreliability of anything that changes. If something's constantly shifting, you can't rely on it for lasting security or contentment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like building your house on sand.
Precisely. So the final logical step they present is this. If something, form, feeling, whatever is impermanent, inherently unsatisfactory, subject to change, would these problematic wrong views even arise if you didn't cling to it? If you didn't mistake it for something permanent or truly satisfying?
And the answer is?
A definite no. The views, these rigid ideas, they're propped up by that mistaken clinging. When you see the impermanent, unsatisfactory foundation clearly, the view just collapses. It loses its basis. And this analysis isn't just limited to the 5 aggregates. They extend it even further to basically everything we experience. What is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, attained, sought, and pondered by the mind. All of it.
Wow. Anything we can possibly experience or think about.
Yes. All deemed impermanent and, in that deeper sense, suffering or unsatisfactory when clung to.
That's a really powerful framework. Okay, let's dive into some of the specific wrong views these texts take apart. This is where it gets really concrete, doesn't it? Starting with some really radical ones that challenge, like, the basic laws of nature and morality.
Right. Some of these are quite startling.
Okay, how about this one? Winds don't blow, rivers don't flow, pregnant women don't give birth, the moon and sun don't rise or set. Everything is like a pillar standing still. That's from the Vedanta Sutta. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds completely detached from reality, doesn't it?
It does, on the surface. But it's a perfect example of how clinging works. This view arises from latching on to rūpa, physical form, as if it's inherently fixed and static.
So denying change itself.
Exactly. If you mistake the appearance of stability like a mountain seems solid for an absolute unchanging nature, then all the obvious dynamism of the world, like rivers flowing, has to be explained away as an illusion. You're clinging to a snapshot instead of seeing the movie.
Okay. Then there's the Nati-dina view. This one sounds really stark, almost nihilistic. It says, there is no gift, no offering, no fruit or result of good or bad deeds, no this world, no other world, no mother, no father.
It keeps going. This person is made of 4 great elements. When they die, earth returns to earth, water to water, and so on. The senses just vanish into space.
What is said about giving is empty talk, a lie.
Yeah.
Those who advocate for existence are utterly annihilated. They do not exist after death.
Right.
That's heavy stuff. From the Nati-dina Sutta, a total rejection of meaning.
It's a very comprehensive materialism and annihilationism, yes. Denying karma, rebirth, any kind of continuity or spiritual reality beyond the physical.
And so where does that come from, according to this analysis?
It stems primarily from identifying only with rūpa, the physical body, and seeing viññāṇaṃ, consciousness, as just a byproduct that completely ceases at death, because they only see the obvious impermanence and dissolution of the body.
They conclude nothing matters, no consequences.
Right. They mistake impermanence, which is about process and change, for complete annihilation and meaninglessness. They don't see the subtle causal links that continue even when the physical form breaks down.
Okay, moving on. The Karato view seems to take that lack of consequence even further. It says there's no evil in doing or causing to do, in cutting or causing to cut, burning or causing to burn.
It gets quite graphic. Even if one were to make all living beings on this earth into a single lump of flesh with a sword, there would be no evil from that.
Wow. And equally, through giving, self-control, truthfulness, there is no merit, no accrual of merit from the Karato Sutta. This is just a flat-out denial of morality. How is that explained?
This extreme position denies any link between actions and results, good or bad. It's rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of saṃkhārā, those mental formations, intentions, volition, and how they connect to viññāṇaṃ, the consciousness of those actions and their effects.
So if you don't see how your intentions drive actions and actions create results,
Then responsibility disappears, right? The texts argue that just like physical actions have physical results, our volitional actions, driven by impermanent desires and intentions, absolutely do create moral and experiential results, vedanā, future viññāṇaṃ, precisely because of their impermanent cause and effect nature. This view misses that causal connection.
then we have the Nati-hetu view. This one claims there is no cause, no condition for the defilement of beings. Beings are defiled without cause. There is no cause for the purification of beings.
Beings are purified without cause or condition. There is no strength, no energy, no human might. All beings are without power, fixed by destiny, experiencing pleasure and pain in 6 classes of rebirth.
From the Hetu Sutta. So this sounds like pure determinism. No free will, no personal effort matters.
Exactly. It removes all individual agency. Everything is preordained by destiny or fate. It denies that your own actions or intentions can influence your path.
And this relates to...
It particularly misunderstands saṃkhārā, the volitional aspect. By seeing our intentions and mental habits as completely fixed or determined externally, it ignores the actual moment-to-moment arising of choices and actions that do create conditions for our future experience. It denies the potential for change through effort.
Okay, and lastly in this group, there's the Mahādi Sutta. This sounds like the most elaborate one. It talks about 7 unmade bodies, uncreated, unformed, like a pillar, standing firm.
Yes, these 7 are listed as earth body, water body, fire body, wind body, pleasure, pain, and life, unchanging essences.
And it claims, even if one cuts off a head with a sharp sword, no one deprives anyone of life. The sword merely passes between these 7 bodies. That's a unique perspective.
Very unique. It then lays out this incredibly detailed, fixed cosmology, millions of wombs, types of beings, paths, eons, all predetermined.
And the conclusion is, there is no means by which one can ripen unripened karma or exhaust ripened karma through morality, vows, asceticism. It's all fixed, like a thrown ball of thread unrolled itself.
Exactly. It's deeply fatalistic and deterministic. It denies free will, denies that spiritual practice can change anything. It essentially reifies the aggregate, seeing rūpa, vedanā, even life itself, jiva related to viññā, as these eternal, unchanging bodies.
So by clinging to the idea of fixed essences,
It completely denies the impermanent, interdependent, and constantly arising nature of reality, including our actions and their consequences. The unrolling thread analogy perfectly captures that sense of a mechanical, predetermined process. No room for change.
okay, let's switch gears a bit. We've looked at views denying natural order and morality. What about views that deal more directly with the self and the world? More personal, maybe cosmological ideas.
Right. These are just as common, maybe even more deeply ingrained.
The Sutta mentions that very calming feeling. This is mine, this I am, this is myself. That feels almost instinctual, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's the core issue it points to. This view highlights that fundamental tendency we have to cling, to identify with things as a permanent, solid self.
We attach to the I too.
To the aggregates, we identify with our body, rūpa, our feelings, vedanā, our thoughts, our consciousness, viññāṇaṃ, all of which are constantly changing, but we superimpose this idea of a fixed, unchanging me onto these fleeting processes. That's the mistake.
Then the Sotāpattivaggo view takes that self and projects it forward. That self, that world that I shall be after death, eternal, stable, permanent, unchanging. That's from the Sutta, the classic eternalist idea.
Yes, the belief in an everlasting soul or self, and maybe an everlasting world to go with it. And again, the texts argue this arises from the same root, misunderstanding the aggregates.
Because you can't build something eternal out of impermanent parts.
Exactly. By taking any of these changing components, body, mind, consciousness, as the basis for an eternal self, you create a view that's fundamentally out of sync with how things actually are, which leads to more clinging, more disappointment.
The texts also tackle those big cosmological questions people debate, right? Like,
Yeah.
Is the world eternal or is it not eternal? Finite? Infinite?
Yes, suttas like Sasakloka, Sasatoka, Antava, and Antava deal with these pairs of opposites, big philosophical positions.
And the approach is similar.
Yes. It shows how taking a fixed stance on these huge speculative questions about the ultimate nature of the universe also stems from clinging perhaps to concepts derived from rūpa, the physical world, or viññāṇaṃ, our limited awareness of it. The point isn't necessarily to provide a definitive cosmological map, but to show how holding any fixed view based on clinging leads away from liberation.
What about the mind-body connection? Views like the soul is the same as the body versus the soul is different from the body.
Yes, the Tejava Daisarira and Anyajava Anya Sarira Suttas, the age-old problem.
So, are mind and body one thing or two?
The texts, again, sidestep giving a simple yes or no answer in those terms. Instead, they show how formulating the question that way becomes problematic when you're clinging to fixed ideas about soul, jiva, related to consciousness viññāṇaṃ, and body, rūpa. Both are processes, not static things. Trying to pin down a fixed relationship of same or different between two constantly changing streams misses the point and arises from misunderstanding their impermanent nature.
Okay, this is fascinating. The sources even tackle those really famous speculative questions about what happens to an enlightened person, a Tathagata, after death.
Right, the four classic positions. The Tathagata exists after death, does not exist, both exists and does not exist, neither exists nor does not exist.
These are often called the unanswerable questions. Why are they included here as wrong views?
Well, the texts suggest they're unanswerable within the conventional framework precisely because the questions themselves are rooted in clinging to the aggregates. An enlightened being, the Tathagata, has completely abandoned clinging to form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness as constituting a self or something that exists in the ordinary sense.
So they've transcended the categories the questions rely on.
Exactly. Trying to apply concepts like exists or does not exist, which are based on our experience of impermanent aggregates, to someone who has gone beyond that framework, is like trying to measure the color of the wind. The problem isn't the enlightened one. It's the clinging embedded in the questions themselves. Holding any of those four views firmly arises from that clinging.
Wow. Okay. And finally, there's a whole range of other views about the self after death, its form, its experience.
Yes, a detailed list. Is the self material, rūpi, immaterial, or rūpi, both, neither? Is its experience solely happy, ekkantasukha, solely suffering, ekkantadukkha, both, Neither.
It's incredibly thorough.
It really is. And every single one of these specific views, whether it's about the nature of the self's form, rūpa, or its potential feelings, vedanā, after death, is traced back to the same root cause.
Clinging to the aggregates as permanent or as a real self.
Precisely. Clinging to some idea of what that self is or experiences, based on misinterpreting these impermanent components of our current life. When you truly see the impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self nature of the aggregates now, the entire basis for all this post-mortem speculation just dissolves.
So what does this all really boil down to for us, it feels like? Well, if you approach these deep questions by grabbing onto fixed ideas, you just get tangled in endless arguments and ultimately dissatisfaction or suffering. What's the way out?
That's the core message. The payoff for this intense analysis isn't just intellectual. The texts consistently offer a clear path to freedom from this confusion. They repeatedly end with a very specific, liberating statement.
Which is?
It goes something like this. When a noble disciple's doubt concerning these 6 things is abandoned, and their doubt concerning suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering is abandoned.
Okay, pausing there. These 6 things, what are those again?
That refers back to the 5 aggregates we discussed. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, plus that 6th category. What is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, attained, sought, and pondered by the mind. Basically all possible experience.
Right, the whole shebang. So when doubt about the true nature of all that is gone, and doubt about suffering and its ending, then what?
Then that noble disciple is called a stream enterer, no longer subject to downfall, certain of enlightenment.
A stream enterer, that sounds significant.
It is. It marks a decisive turning point. It means they've had a direct, unshakable insight into the nature of reality, specifically impermanence and the conditioned nature of things. They've seen through the illusion that fuels these wrong views.
And abandoning doubt about suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path, that sounds like the 4 Noble Truths, right?
Exactly. It points directly to that core teaching. When you genuinely understand why suffering arises, clinging to the impermanent, and how it ceases, letting go of that clinging by seeing reality clearly, the doubt dissolves. The very foundation for those clinging-based views disappears. You're not arguing against the views anymore. You've just seen beyond the perspective that creates them.
It's like pulling the rug out from under them.
Precisely. Leading to liberation from that specific kind of doubt and setting you firmly on the path.
Okay, so this is ancient wisdom, deep philosophy, but how does it connect to us, living our lives today? You might be sitting there thinking, interesting, but what's the relevance?
Well, think about the sheer volume of information, opinions, and truths bombarding us constantly. Social media feeds, news cycles.
Echo chambers.
Right. How often do we grab onto an idea, maybe based on one article, one conversation, one strong feeling, and treat it as an absolute, unchanging reality? How often do we form really strong beliefs based on pretty fleeting data?
All the time, probably. We mistake a snapshot for the whole picture.
Exactly. These texts are like a timeless mirror, asking us to examine the foundations of our own strongly held views. Are they based on clear seeing, on acknowledging the constant change and interdependence of things?
Or are they maybe rooted in a kind of clinging, a wish for things to be permanent, fixed, a desire for a solid, unchanging self in a world that just isn't like that?
That's the critical self-reflection it encourages. The real takeaway isn't just a list of things that aren't permanent or aren't a self. It's about the freedom that comes from loosening that grip.
The freedom from the suffering caused by clinging.
Yes. And the clarity that emerges. It's about cultivating a way of perceiving reality more directly, less filtered through rigid assumptions. A kind of radical clarity.
That was a truly illuminating deep dive, exploring the roots of our views, the nature of existence itself, and how seeing clearly can free us from so much confusion and suffering. It feels incredibly practical, actually.
It really is. It shows how understanding something fundamental, the impermanent, unsatisfactory nature of phenomena when clung to, can cut through incredibly complex philosophical knots and lead straight to practical insight.
So, for you listening, maybe something to ponder as you go about your day. What views do you hold on to most tightly? And just maybe, could they be based on an unexamined assumption? An assumption of permanence, perhaps, or a fixed self. Join us next time on The Deep Dive for another journey into being truly well-informed.